What is up, YouTube? It's your man Lotus here. Today I am back from the roughest 2 weeks that I've had in quite a while. I was out for about a week and a half with pneumonia, and then shortly afterwards I hurt myself. So yeah, it's been a pretty rough 2 weeks for your boy, but I am back. And recently during my time I did try to dabble in some Shinobi Strikers while I was out, and I noticed the rapid spike in people flocking to defense type due to the recent Sage Mode buff back in December, and it's just really giving the defense types an insane amount of sustain, and people are really flocking to this class, running 4 defense types, 3 defense types, and a heal type, and it's just really, you know, getting pretty absurd. And if you don't know how to effectively deal with the situation, you're kind of gonna lose every match that you come across this with, unless your team is just really on par like that and you know how to deal with the situation. So today's video is going to be based around, you know, telling the newer people to the game and our lesser experienced people who, you know, who aren't really good with countermeasures and things like that, telling you guys how to effectively counter Sage Mode within Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Strikers. So without further ado, guys, let's get it. Now, to kick things off, I'm going to start off on how to obtain Sage Mode and what exactly Sage Mode does, so you have a general understanding as to how these countermeasures effectively counter Sage Mode within the game. Now, Sage Mode is a secret technique that you receive from Mitsuki, having him as a master, and it is the secret technique reward you receive from him. Now, Sage Mode, when activated, it does restore your health all the way back to full, and it gives you 3 buffs and 1 major debuff. The buffs is a large attack boost, a large defense boost, and a large movement speed boost. These are very large boosts, and they are quite effective within the game and very noticeable. The 1 major debuff is that you are not able to use ninjutsu while this secret technique is active, and this is a pretty heavy you know, restraint to this secret technique, and it's actually larger than people think it is. And I'm going to go into why, you know, as I explain the, you know, countermeasures for Sage Mode. But I'm going to start at the top of the ladder and work my way down, and that is being secret technique counters to Sage Mode. Now, when it comes to secret technique counters, for everything outside of heal type, you want anything that is guaranteed an insta-kill technique, and we're going to get at heal types after we go over the other 3 types very quickly. Now, attack types, you guys have 2 options in terms of insta-kill secret techniques. You have the infamous Planetary Devastation, and you have Kamui. Now, when it comes to Planetary Devastation, you want to wait until after the Sage Mode animation is up. Now, this is where the ninjutsu part comes into play, because now that they have no ninjutsu, they are not able to effectively counter your Planetary Devastation, in which they are pretty much dead once you catch them with it. Now, when it comes to Kamui, the moment you see that Sage Mode activates, you should immediately activate Kamui, because they are still capable of taking damage while Sage Mode is active. You will insta-kill them and they will be dead and it will be wasted. And that is pretty much all for the attack types. Now, looking into range types, you guys only have 1 guaranteed insta-kill secret technique, and in comparison to the other insta-kill secret techniques within the game, it is pretty difficult to land, and that is the C4 Karura from Datara. Now, the reason this jutsu is so difficult to land is because it has a very long startup with a pretty mediocre range for the insta-kill property. So when you see them activating Sage Mode, it is best to try to be right next to them when you activate the secret technique, so that way when they come out of the startup animation for activating Sage Mode, they have to work harder to try to get out of the range for the insta-kill effect. But, you know, if you activate it the moment you see Sage Mode being popped up, you do have a pretty decent chance of getting off the secret technique, especially if you put it right next to them. In the worst case scenario, you might have to pair up with some of the other types within the game to try to hold them in place so you can land the insta-kill. Defense types have the binding jutsu from Yamato. Heal types have the paralysis jutsu and the feather illusion jutsu, but I'll get into that later. You know, or you can pair it with another range type in which they have the lightning net, in which they can stun them and hold them there a little bit longer so you can get that insta kill effect. But these are just some options that you can have, you know, when trying to land this secret technique. Now, defense types are in a similar boat when it comes to only having one insta-kill secret technique, but it is a purchasable DLC secret technique within the game in which you have to purchase the heaters in DLC. It is the Reaper Death Seal ult, and this secret technique also has some faults of its own. Now, there has been numerous issues when it comes to the Reaper Death Seal. People running out of the animation, people substituting out of the animation, etc., and things like that. And one of the main big things for the Reaper Death Seal is that it has a very long secret technique gauge. It takes quite a lot to get this gauge up, in which I feel this jutsu was in more of a need of that buff than Sage Mode was, because it is pretty much the only single target ultimate within the game in which it only hits one person. It can only affect one person, so I feel like it was in desperate need of that secret technique gauge buff that Sage Mode received. But you know, we'll talk about that at another time. But it is a valuable option. I do recommend, you know, getting the substitution from the person first, in which instinctively in most cases when you activate Sage Mode, a person does try to go on the offensive to get the most out of that damage boost, to dish out their damage, because if a person is running a boost to secret technique gauge for a top, if you get one kill while Sage Mode is active, it gives you almost half of your gauge back, and that is the worst thing you can do while Sage Mode is up, is die, because you give them half of their secret technique gauge back, in which they'll be getting, you know, Sage Mode again, and it is just a continuous loop of Sage Modes. But talk about that a little bit later into the video. But yeah, like I said, you know, it's instinctive that when a person gets hit, you know, by a strong knockback while Sage Mode is active, they're going to try to substitute and go on the offensive. So once you get that substitute, you know, just hit them with a blast bomb, get that substitute, and then pop Reaper Death Seal, and hopefully the jutsu acts properly so you can get that insta kill on them and make them waste their Sage Mode. And finally, heal types. Now, although heal types lack an insta-kill secret technique, they have some of the most viable options in terms of countering Sage Mode due to them getting their secret technique extraordinarily fast simply from healing themselves and their teammates. Now, starting off, they have the Twin Lion Fist from Hinata as a reward for having her as a master within the game. The Twin Lion Fist is designed to counter secret techniques in general, in which hitting any opponent with this secret technique will reset their secret technique gauge. So hitting them with this, it'll reset their gauge, and more than likely you'll receive your Twin Lion Fist around the same time they get their Sage Mode back. Now, when using the Twin Lion Fist, you do not want to wait until they get their health low. You want to pop it probably around the time that you get it and hit them with it, so you can reset their gauge, so your team can keep applying that pressure and killing them. So, you know, getting rid of that insane amount of sustain that they have. And secondly, they have the Feather Illusion Jutsu, in which you can, you know, use the typical strat for heal types currently, you know, having them chase you and then jumping over a pit, hitting them with the Feather Illusion, and having them fall to their death, in which that leads into the second set of strats that I'm going to talk about, which is utilizing the pits. Now, 3 out of the 5 maps that we have within the typical 4v4 game modes within Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Strikers are pitfall maps, being the Hidden Leaf Forest, the Hidden Cloud Village, and the Hidden Sand Village maps. Now, typically I am, you know, in the heat of battle, I'm typically against using pits. Well, it's quite frustrating when the pits are used against me, but it is a valuable strat to use within the game when you are having difficulty killing certain opponents. Whether they're running 2 heal types or their healer is just really good at keeping their team alive, utilizing the pit is a valuable strat to reduce their numbers, gain that numbers advantage, and pick off some of their teammates. So, you know, in my right mind, I do, you know, value using pit strategies in order to gain the upper hand and secure a victory. Now, when countering Sage Mode, they lack the ninjutsu to, you know, effectively counter falling into a pit. You know, you can generally use any strat to counter into a pit using 4 kunai, you know, comboing them. Attack types have the advantage in this category, in which you can use the most annoying weapons that attack types have, being the chakra claws, and comboing them into the air until you get that hard knockdown effect and they fall to their deaths. Now, pit strategies are a very effective way of countering, although, you know, there is the situation you do end up on the 2 maps without a pitfall, in which you will have to rely on the secret technique strat on countering Sage Mode and the other valuable strats countering Sage Mode, and that is simply waiting out the jutsu. Like I stated before, the worst thing you can do when Sage Mode is active is die to it, because you're practically giving them half of their secret technique gauge back and giving them their Sage Mode again, and just waiting the jutsu out is a very valuable strat. You can easily avoid them. Defense types have the lowest attack speed within the game. All of the other types outspeed them. The other types have projectiles such as kunai, range types have senbon and kunai, and you know, you can easily counter Sage Mode. You can easily wait out the jutsu. They don't have the ninjutsu to pressure you the way that they would if they did have it, so you can effectively counter Sage Mode just by waiting it out. Although they will gain all of their life, but you won't be giving them their gauge back, and they'll have to wait it out again, giving you time to try to kill them in between. So that is pretty much all for the video today, guys. If you did find this video helpful, consider slapping a like on the video. If you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. Consider hitting that subscribe button and joining the way of the Lotus here on the channel. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Later.